So it's not about I am the boss and I'm telling you what to do. I'm actually responsible for their growth. I'm responsible for when they're spending their time. I'm responsible for their mental health.
Welcome back to Neuroconversant Leadership, where we talk about effective communication and leadership, especially in the STEM workplace. I'm Jeremy Doran, and I particularly love to help great engineers become great managers and great leaders. Today with us, we have a special guest who's going to have many interesting things to talk about, Mario Di Dio. Mario, welcome.
Hi, Jeremy. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
With the accent, you're already entertaining to listen to, so thank you for that. Can you tell everybody a little bit about what it is that you do?
Interesting question. So today, my responsibility, I am the general manager of network at Helium. So I manage everything around a business unit for a product which is Helium, which helps telecommunication company to expand their network, like AT&T and T-Mobile and such, to expand their coverage by utilizing, actually, of all things, cryptocurrency as an incentive mechanism for coverage to expand, which is kind of a crazy idea.
Yeah.
It's very novel. It's very innovative in my view, and kind of disruptive. And that's what I love about what I'm doing. So yeah, we have a team of about 35 people managing everything from, sales, marketing, product, technology, BD. Yeah, it's fun. It's a ton of fun.
So 35 people is your team or the whole company?
The whole company is about 70 to 80. So 35 is the realm of like influence within my view.
Got it. So that's interesting. Is it easy to explain in a minute or two how cryptocurrency can help them expand their networks?
Yeah, I think I can do it quickly. I have a 3 minutes pitch. So if I tell you cellular networks, you probably think big towers, big radios. We all seen them, right, on the side of the road going down the highway. So that's the traditional way of creating in the way AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, all those guys create networks. You lease a tower, you put up a tower, and you put up hardware in there. It's pretty expensive, as you might imagine, as a proposition. So what we've been trying to do with Helium instead is disrupt that way of building a network, and instead empowering people that they have real estate. Let's say, Jeremy, you are a coffee shop owner. So you have a lot of people coming through your shop every day. Helium incentivizes Jeremy to put up almost like a mini cell tower. It's a small piece of hardware that you can install in your internet, using your internet at your coffee shop. And that mini cell tower acts the same way that those big towers that you see on the highway, but it's a much more miniaturized version, and they provide connectivity for people that enter your shop. So creating this like cohorting together these small miniature cell towers, we are able to help those carriers expand coverage in a much more economical, viable way. Why, Jeremy? Why would you put this hardware in your shop? Is because you actually get rewarded in cryptocurrency proportionally to the amount of traffic that people do in your coffee shop. So carriers pay the Helium, and Helium distributes those blockchain, distributes their earnings to all the different owners. So we call it the people's network because this is really what it is. And so it's a network that is owned by the many. So it doesn't have a single owner. Every single one can essentially become a mini cell tower owner in their own place. The owner of those infrastructure, they get paid to share their broadband, their internet connection with the people that they serve. You are happy as a coffee shop owner because people don't have to ask for the Wi-Fi password. Mm-hmm. They get connected as soon as they enter your shop. You have better connectivity for your place, and you get also rewarded for it.
Nice. I like it. Thank you for sharing that. So how did you start your career? You're in charge of 30, 35 people now. How did you begin?
Well, I have a very deep engineering background. So as you can say from the accent, I'm from Italy originally. Born and raised in Sicily, but then I studied up in Pisa, this amazing engineering university in Pisa that's very famous for the Leaning Tower. But it's even more famous in the academia world because they have an amazing engineering school. So I moved over there, did my bachelor and master degree in telecommunication engineering. And then I loved it so much that I was like, okay, maybe I'll start a PhD. And that's what I did. I started a PhD there. So head on research as deep as it gets into the telecommunication world. By the end of my PhD, there was a company in the San Francisco Bay Area that were doing some things around telecommunication, which was very, very similar to the things that was tried to bring into the research. It was like, it would be great if you want to join us. They were very early. in the stage of the company. The company is called Artemis Networks. They're still out, and that's kind of where my US chapter started. So I right after I finished my PhD, I immigrated in San Francisco, joined the company, but pretty much at that point I was very much of a single contributor.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, things changed a lot because you fast forward like 3-4 years down the road, I started to manage a technical team inside the startup, and then you fast forward like 6 years later, now I'm in a different company. I moved from San Francisco to Colorado, which is where I am, to join another company for innovation, which is called Cable Labs. But then now you started to manage about 15 people, and that's where I started to have business responsibility. So that's where I think my engineering turned more into a storytelling of a product perspective. So it became product ownership. And from product, it jumped in more in a full-on P&L responsibility. And then now, 3 years ago, I joined Helium into this role. So yeah, I didn't think that was going to go that way. I enjoy thoroughly, and I still do, engineering work, but I've learned through the years how to navigate different functions of the company. While I was here in Colorado, then I did get my executive MBA from the University of Denver. My wife always gives me a lot of, like, really, like another degree. And
Right.
yes,
You're
that's
well
the way I
educated.
learned. As an engineer, as soon as you start learning about P&L and accounting and managerial reporting, you're like, okay, I need to sit down and learn this, like deep down into it. And then sure enough, I signed up for an MBA, and it helped me tremendously.
So you've made a number of transitions. You went from moving to a new country and, you may know the language, but the culture and the communication is different. So that was one. And then going from engineering to managing other engineers or leading a team. And now it sounds like you manage managers. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, all of those are large transitions. Let's start with the transition from being an individual contributor to being a manager of people. How did you find that transition? What were some stumbling blocks, and how did you get good at it?
That transition was probably the hardest because there's always challenges in any of this transition. You mentioned something about moving to a different country. In a way, while we can all talk about it, how hard it was from a cultural standpoint, which it was in many ways. One of the first days I was in San Francisco, went out to lunch, and I ordered a glass of wine for lunch. People were looking like, "Are you crazy?" I'm like, "No, I'm just Italian." Anyway, regardless of that cultural shock, actually helped me tremendously because he helped me even within a disruptive startup, having a mentality and which is very different. I don't know much you're familiar with Italian culture, but we are very direct. So like we like to talk and we like to hash things out, and so that very upfront, very honest way of dealing with problems on the technical level, I think gave me the respect from people around me because they knew that there was nothing behind the curtain going on. And I think that's really, at the end of the day, what every manager should feel. Like the way I wanted to feel with my manager is that there is nothing happening behind the curtain that I don't know. And I think that was a lot of heritage from my culture that helped me go in that direction, because it's just, that's the way we are. And so initially I only had 2 people to manage. They were helping our testing and of our technology. The hardest part, it was started as a peer and then becoming a manager of those people. It's a very interesting transition. So I frankly, especially on the technology leadership part of my career, I always thought that I should not ask of people things that I wasn't ready to do myself. I always made sure that the people knew that I was asking because I was ready to do it myself in a good way. Meaning, like, it was not something that I was just gonna brush it off to someone else to do it. If they needed help, I was there. I could do it with them. And I think that actually helped them feeling cohorting and being part of something bigger and doing together. And sometimes I did get my hands dirty. We're still an 8-people startup. So, what does management even mean? I tell you what it means. It means, like, I'm no joking, cleaning the toilets before the investor meeting and then put on a suit and do a pitch deck for an international caterer coming. So, like you do everything. And so managing, if nothing else, was helping them prioritize tasks and know that they could count on me if they needed help to get it done. And but it was a very interesting feeling, going from a peer relationship to a relationship which now I feel like I'm responsible for those people. So it's not about I am the boss and I'm telling you what to do. I'm actually responsible for their growth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm responsible for when they're spending their time. I'm responsible for their mental health. Because if I push them too hard, then they're going to have other type of issues. Or if I push them too little, they're not going to grow. So it's like that responsibility landed, and the feeling of responsibility landed. And to be honest, at the beginning, I don't even know if I was that good. What I mean is, like, it's something that you have to do it. You can read books, you can do all sorts of leadership training, but there is nothing like being in the trenches and doing it with a lot of compassion, a lot of empathy. So those are the way I've been leading at that stage of my career, which it got harder to do later when I get out of the technology only realm into something that I didn't know what it was, like marketing or sales.
Yeah.
Or BD.
So it's interesting. I've talked to a lot of people when they first make the transition to their first management role, and very often they're now managing peers, and they have a hard time giving tasks to people because they're like, I don't want to like make them do stuff. I'm like, well, if you don't tell them what they need to do, how will they know what they're supposed to be doing? But it takes realizing what your goals are. And you said it, your goal is to help them more so than get a thing done yourself.
And it comes down also to clarity of communication, right? What I mean is like, sure, there is some time and space in which you have to play the taskmaster role in which but majority of the time, and I'm talking now from a privileged standpoint of smaller companies, which is kind of my thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you explain the reason, the truth of the matter is that if you're a good startup, you hire exceptional people. Those exceptional people are people that it's less about telling the task that they need to perform. It's more about the storytelling of here where we are in the company, here's what we need to do right now as a company to succeed. And they know already what is the task because they're exceptional. And so for me, I was lucky enough to have an incredible team of people that I have all the companies I work for, which for me it was mostly about explaining where we needed to go. And then they were coming back to me and be like, okay, I think to get there, we need to do this first, we need to do this second, we need to do this third. And I was like, okay, great. And then I got out of the way.
I like that. So you shared the vision and then kind of came up with the strategy together of how to get there.
Yeah, I think I've saw one of those like interesting comics in which like there is like a river, and it's clear that a bridge needs to be built, and there is like one leadership style in which nobody says anything, nobody knows what to do. Second leadership style that is like, yes, we need to build a bridge. This is the material. This is how long it's going to take. And then the leader essentially says everything in a very, very task OCD management style. And then the bridge end up costing like 5x than what it's supposed to be. And then there is another type of leadership, which is what I'm aspiring to be, which is like, we got to go on the other side. And I think we need a bridge. That's it. And then and we need to get a bridge by this time. And at that point, let people do what they're good at. Let people do what they're being hired for.
Love it. So I love the collaborative approach. Like, here's the thing that we need to achieve. What do you think is like, what do we need to do it? That's wonderful. Out of curiosity, the training that you got, because you mentioned that there's nothing like actually doing. Was the training all at once, like a couple of days of training, and then you went and implemented, or was it spaced out?
I always had in the back burner a little bit of training, and I keep doing even today. So there is always things that you do that you should be doing as a leader. A lot of introspective work, if not, whatever fits your type of person, because everybody, we are different. But whatever it is, like guided meditation to kind of introspect of what your leadership is, or if it is an actual coach that you see like every couple of weeks. There's always something in the back burner that I do.
Nice.
But also, especially at the beginning, I really love a full immersion, like 3 to 4 days in the middle of nowhere. And all you do is you actually, with a coach, you dig really deep in why your leadership style is the way it is. And let's be honest, that we are all people. It's all tied to where you're coming from, where is your background, what is your family history, what is sometimes what your trauma are. And that can only be unraveled in a meaningful way for me in an intensive setting. So I usually do a 1 time a year intensive setting of like 2 to 3 days in which you detach completely from everything. It's a long weekend. You just really dig into with a very good coach to dig into that. But then you gotta keep doing it, and whatever it is, journaling, meditation. Again, everybody is different. Everybody, for example, I'm really bad at journaling. Like I've never been like a writer person, like handwriter person, so it doesn't work for me. At a certain point I was using video notes. I was literally recording videos to myself that I was getting into a folder, and it helped me like going through the leadership struggle.
So you said that once a year you do an immersion. Is that
Yeah.
just for you, or is that something that you have your team do?
We also do it with a team. We do also with a team, about a couple of times a year, and it's very efficient, and it's very like not to say very effective. I find. I also think that the leader himself needs to do this by himself, because again, you're arriving things that they are much more on a personal level, and so I like to do that by myself in addition to whatever team building or team like shaping you want to do together with your team. It's very important that you do your own work. You know what they say, like there is no way you can put oxygen mask on the airplane, first put on your before you help others. That's kind of the thing,
I use
right?
that analogy all the time, especially with time management. I'm like, until you can get your own time under control, you will not have time to help anyone else on your team.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I love it. I love your dedication to continuous learning. That's wonderful. So then the next transition you made is from managing a small team to now managing managers, and you're managing people who have expertise other than your own. What were some of the major obstacles there, whether like actual obstacles or just self-perceived obstacles?
Ooh, that's interesting. Because yes, there were obstacles, and it's interesting when you say self-perceived. It opens up an interesting conversation because obstacles were to me very clear and very scary, which is if you're an engineer, at a certain point you think you want to be the subject matter expert in what you do. And if you're relatively good, you get there. Like you can talk to other people in the industry at the highest level or wherever it is your engineering realm. Let's say you are like I don't know, like a C++ embedded developer, which was really what I was. It was great. I could have conversations with all the as deep as we want with all those people they are in that world, and we felt very good about it. Now you enter a place in which you're supposed to manage, or you're supposed to, again, give directions to a team of salespeople or to a team of BD people. And you're supposed to set up a vision and goals that touches all the different departments, and they are looking up to you to be like, okay, what do I do? Do we do an outbound email? Do we do do we spend money on advertisement? So my first reaction was an incredible fear of like essentially an imposter syndrome. Like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm definitely not the guy because because I don't know sales, I don't know BD, I don't know marketing. So my first reaction was this huge gigantic imposter syndrome, which was followed in a typical engineering mindset in trying to learn every single one of those things. So I spent an incredible amount of time trying to learn the nuts and bolts of marketing and the sales and BD and outbound, inbound, oh accounting, oh my god, finance. Like I never like who I mean, and then I realized that first of all, I was not gonna make it. Like seriously, like the reason why we have like marketing degrees and we have like accounting degrees, because to go deep in those things, it takes a lot of time.
They're very different.
The leadership model that I described before of I would never ask you to do something unless I am willing to do it in the technology side, it doesn't apply anymore because I can't. It's not like I can't do a budget. So that took some reset. And once I realized that I could not go deep in each single one of those, that's what I found actually the MBA be very helpful. Because then I researched a lot. There was this, and then I didn't know there was things like executive MBAs, which are exactly tailored for executives that are in those leadership roles. And personally, here in the University of Denver, it's a phenomenal program. It was a full-on program, so it was no online, it was in person, so I had to go there once a week, alternating Fridays and Saturdays for 9 hours a day. It was a lot. It was a lot to take for my family too, to be pretty open. But it allows me to find the middle ground, which is you can learn about a different function in a high level, having the tools to evaluate what is being put in front of you. And going back to the bridge analogy, I can evaluate a marketing plan right now. I can evaluate a budget or a financial summary. I can evaluate a BD plan, but I don't need to be as deep into I don't need to feel I can do it myself, because of course at that point you have 35 people. You're not going to do it. You're definitely not going to be the one doing it. At the end of the day, what I come to realize is that being an executive, it's about making decisions. That's really what it is. You get paid to make decisions and to make few quality decisions, not 1,000 small decisions in every single part of the bit. Let that be done by the people that they're there and they're exceptional at what they're doing. They work the entire career of that. Once you start having a generalist executive role, like a GM, which is almost like in a way a mini CEO within the company, if you wish. You have your own P&L, you have your own. It's about doing few quality decisions. And so in my specific setting, I found the MBA to be very helpful because I was able to apply my engineering mindset, a very structured learning, which works for me, but without going deep in every single one of them. And that kind of was you kind of go rid of the imposter syndrome a little bit. There's always something there, but that's kind of like a personal thing that people that struggle with it will struggle with that for their entire life. So it's about learning how to.
If you don't struggle with it, it means you're not pushing yourself to levels that you weren't at before. Happens.
Very insightful. And I think that was the biggest obstacle, and that's the way I feel like I was able to move on. I like you say self-perceived, because then later on in conversation with my direct reports, it is true. They look up to you and you're like, are you really looking for my suggestion to do this? And I think that you're right. Sometimes we do put ourselves in boxes, and in my case it was like I should not be asked about marketing plan, and then you do. And sometimes the self-perceived, it is absolutely much stronger than a real obstacle. And going back to the first thing, the solution is do something. Do whatever it is. In my case, it was an MBA course. Sure, some other people might be like, I don't know, nice studies. Some other people might be something else, but the action clears out a lot of those self-perceived obstacles, because it puts you into like do mode. At do mode, you're too busy doing that there is no space for your mind to go into these weird trips of like why you shouldn't be there, and this is way too much of what I can actually accomplish. I'm just an imposter. People are gonna find out. I'm gonna get fired tomorrow. All that stuff kind of gets out of your system if you go into a doer.
So it requires a lot of trust. You have to trust that the people that you have hired or that are reporting to you know what they're doing. So you may evaluate it, but you have to trust them to be able to do it. And that is hard to let go.
And that kind of brings me to another conversation that it's very important for leadership, which is hiring who you have on your team. Mm-hmm. Who are the people that you want on your team? And really asking the hard questions, because it's not easy. I mean, it's easy to talk about it, but then it means that sometimes it means switching roles to some people. It means let go of some people. But it's very important to ask yourself, do I identify the right seats on the bus? And second, do I have the right people on the right seat on that bus? Once you are able to, I would say, with a reasonable level of confidence that you do, then everything becomes much easier. And I've gone through like probably everybody in the tech industry in the past 3 years through rounds of layoff and being in charge of reshaping my organization in a couple of companies. It's one of the hardest things that I think a leader is meant to do, but he pushes you to ask those hard questions, to identify the right seats, and do have the right people on the right seat.
I love that. And you talked about making a few important decisions and making them quickly. I am reading the book God Emperor of Dune, and he is a total tyrant. And the way he finds good administrators is with people who are rebellious against him, because those people are taking a stand. And he's saying that most people in most organizations try not to make decisions because they don't want the responsibility if something goes wrong. But a good executive needs to be able to make the decision and take responsibility for it and not just bury themselves in data and not make any decisions. And the thing he said, which I liked so much, someone asked, what's the difference between a good administrator and a bad administrator or executive? He said 5 heartbeats, because a good one will make the decision like that. And the bad ones will just take as long as they can to avoid it.
Yeah, I think that's correct. And I think it's because sometimes we, as human, as you know that because you being a coach, I'm sure, the human brain is wired to protect you. And in a world when there is no predators anymore running around for at least in the civilized part of the world, running around trying to eat you, your brain always think about the worst possible outcome, and it weighs that like 3 times more than a positive outcome. So whenever you're making a decision, you're not thinking about what the possible good thing of this decision could be. You immediately think, what happened if this is the wrong decision? Which, by the way, it's okay. I'm not saying it's not okay to think about it that way, but also being aware that you're probably weighing more your bad outcome than the good outcome helps you to move faster, to be like, okay, no, I'm definitely overthinking this, we should do it. And the other part is, especially small companies, I would say this tirelessly, there is no decision that lasts forever. Like, you take a decision, and especially in a small company, I mean, sure, if I'm Jeff Bezos and I'm managing Amazon and I decided to do an acquisition of a $7 billion of a company, yeah, I'll probably take my time to make the decision, like. But if you go into smaller situations, the idea that you have this like long-lasting decision that will shape the path of your startup for the next 3 years, forget about it. What you're doing a decision what is today, and you're evaluating 6 months, and then you might change, and then you might pivot, and then you might adjust. And then if you all those like very negative scenarios in your mind, try to challenge yourself. Am I thinking about this as if I don't have any power later? Because you do, actually. You do have the power. So it's about actually recognizing, goes back a little bit on the personal level there, which is, are you a person that recognizes when you mess up? Because if you are, then it's okay taking a wrong decision, and then you get in front of the team and like, okay, guys, we tried. It wasn't the right thing. Let's move on. We'll do something else.
You can't have all the data.
Yeah, if you're a person that tries to avoid those hard conversations, then in your head you're going around and be like, oh yeah, but if I do that, then I won't be able to. It's like, yeah, but you just take responsibility of what you do and you just do it. They just do it. It's not just a slogan. It's actually true, and it's true at many levels: work, personal, health. Right? I mean, like. Yeah, just do it, right? I mean, like it's very hard. And for example, when it comes to like fitness, I'm not very good at it. Doing the just doing part, like but it's important.
One of my favorite sayings, which always makes people stop and look at me, is if something's worth doing, it's worth doing poorly. They're like, what? Because people feel the need to wait until a thing is perfect to do it. I'm like, it's never going to be perfect. You're going to do the best that you can right now, and you're going to adjust as you go. I know a number of people who are applying to colleges right now, and they are really struggling with which ones to apply to, and if they do an early commitment, if you make an early commitment, do you have to stay 4 years or could you only stay one? They're like, oh, well, I have to stay 1 year and then I could change. But it never occurred to them that they could make a change and make an adjustment. So that's interesting.
That's very interesting. And if you look at, and I think it's a mix of what societies try to depict, this like perfect life. And I'm not going to go on a rant about social media here, but it kind of plays a big role into that, I feel. But if you actually read about successful people, not just technology-wise, but from beginning of the history, they always pivot. They always change. They start in something, they go somewhere else, and they change career midway. And the linear success growth, or whatever you want to call it, like a very linear way of getting to success, it can happen. There's a lot of example that happen, but it's absolutely not the necessary one. It's not like
it's not the norm.
Necessary thing. It's not the norm at all. Like if you read about any one of the successful people, the same thing, they say something like that about, there is this like narrative that you often hear about people like, oh well, if you don't start anything young, you're never gonna get like something in the order like, well, wherever you're going to be at 35, that's likely where you're going to end up for the rest of your career. It's like, that's just completely made up. Like, It's not true. If you read the history of multi-billion dollars company have been created the people in late 30s, there is many of them. It's like, it's not like that, like at all.
Another one of my favorite sayings is the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is right now. We're going to have to start wrapping up. So where can people reach out to you or learn more about you if they wanted to?
Well, professionally, LinkedIn is kind of like my page. I also very active on X and X Twitter. That's because, what we do, which is the world of cryptocurrencies and telco, lives a lot on X. So you can search for Mario Di Dio, which is fortunately and unfortunately a very uncommon name in the States. But yeah, like I think LinkedIn and Twitter are my favorite place to share.
Perfect. And then the last question for you is, what's one piece of communication advice that we can all benefit from?
Don't be afraid of speak your truth, and I'm addressing the what and the why. I'm not addressing the how. What I mean is, you gotta learn throughout your career how to communicate the truth, which is very different if you're in front of a board of directors meeting versus if you are like with an intern. But do not be afraid to speak your truth, because wherever it is, it's likely going to unlock conversations in the other part of the equation that you wanted to have. So don't waste time in your mind too much worried about what is going to happen if I say something, and what is going to happen if I expose, let's say we have a weakness and some part of the revenue is whatever dropping 4%, and you think that actually this is not going to, just speak your truth. And that is true also for managing people. When for example, performance are probably not on target the way you want it to be with someone. So the how is important, and I will never stress this enough. Like, the how is as important as the, but don't get the what getting in the way. Get the tools, work with a coach to learn how to have an effective communication at different level with different people, but do not pass on the what and why you should speak your truth.
And that is also true in your personal relationships.
100%. It goes both ways. And the how, it's, like I said, it's very important.
Well, Mario, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. Thank you, Jeremy, for having me.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Neuroconversant Leadership. We're over 100 episodes now. And as mentioned, I'm going to be making some changes. So I would love your feedback on what changes I should make, what things I should add, what things I should take away. Please do me a favor and reach out either on LinkedIn or on my email address, which is jdoran@neuroconversantleadership.com. I look forward to hearing your suggestions. Thanks a lot. Until next time, have a great week.